এবং অপরাজিতা দিকে আমাদের একটু 10 মিনিট আমরা লেট রান করছি তাই আমি নেক্সট সেশনে এগিয়ে যাচ্ছি Our next session is He Said, She Said, a session on love stories written by men and written by women. We have a glittering panel of 2 he's and 2 she's, and I'd like to call them up on stage. Anuja Chauhan, as you all know, is a very well-known writer. She's also had an incredible career in advertising and been credited with many taglines that we still remember today, including Ye Dil Mange More. We also have with us Durjoy Dotto. Durjoy is very popular, especially with the young generation. The young female generation would probably be more accurate. He has written many best-selling novels on love. We are also delighted to have Nobunil Chakraborty, who has combined love very interestingly with the thriller genre in his novels for young adults. And we have a debutante novelist, Swati Hegde, whose first book, Match Me If You Can, was published just last year by Penguin. I'd like to call them all up on stage, and in conversation with them will be Purna Banerjee. Purna is one of the first bloggers from the city who writes extensively on food, films, and many other subjects. So Purna, I'll now hand over the reins of the session to you.
Right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope all of you can hear me. If anybody cannot hear me, please raise your hand. Or come closer. Anyway. So, today we have a very, very interesting panel with 4 of the most well-known people who have been delving in romance for a while in the Indian scenario. We have with us Durjoy Dutt. I mean, if you guys have not read Durjoy Dutt, you should. I keep on telling people that. Nobody believes me. The second person who I would like to discuss is Anuja Chauhan, and this is they are sitting boys, boys, girls, girls, they just said. This is a panel about it, okay? So, then we have Swati Hegde, and last but not the least, we have one of my favorite people and also the Sidney Sheldon of India, the amazing Nobunil Chakraborty, whose books I keep on thinking of, what is going to happen after this? Because every time I think, okay, this is going to be it, right? And it's like, no, it's not her, it's her daughter. I'm like, damn it! My answer always goes, damn it, what is happening? But before we begin this session, I have a task for all of them. There is one question that is going to be asked here. This panel is about he said, she said. Perspectives on how we write and what we write, and how our voices as a gender, as a man or a woman, has certain elements to it which differs us from each other. However, today I'm going to ask all 4 of them a same question. I actually have only 3 pens, sorry. So one of you have to share, sorry. But I'm going to give you guys some of these torn papers and make you guys write your definition of how a love story should end. One paper for you. One paper for you. I know, it's a horrible question. One for you. And, yes, absolutely.
It's one line, okay?
One word to one letter, anything works, okay? And sorry, one of you guys have to share this pen. I'm going to leave it to the boys. Thank you, guys. Most amazing people, right?
We can explain our answers, right?
Not right now. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is write it down and keep it for a little bit before I start asking questions. So I know this session is going to be slightly different, but this session is one of my favorite sessions because I love love. Okay, I really do. I mean, who doesn't, right? And a lot of people who say, I hate love, actually don't. They love it, but they don't have the right person for it to share that love. And that's, I think, the topic which all 4 of these have been discussing for quite a while. Swati being the last person to enter the field, but very strong match, because what she has done in Match Me, if you can, no, I have to say it like this, Match Me if you can, because I am 41 and single yet. So, before I continue, I would like to start with the youngest member. I am assuming, I'm sorry if I'm age shaming her, I'm not. I swear to God, she just looks so fresh.
Thank
so,
you.
I just want to know, Swati, from your perspective, when you started writing, how have you thought of your characters in general? Have you thought of them as a gender or as a person? I want to know that.
Have I thought of them as a?
Gender or a person? Like, do you first say, okay, there's a guy, and so here I must have this quality. Or there's a girl, she must have a this quality.
Okay, so I think one thing I like to do with my fiction and my books is usually I try to gender bend things, like what's conventionally seen as, the strong alpha male. I try not to write those male characters just because I think we have a lot of them already. And while they have their place in fiction, they may not always have a place in my heart because I prefer my men to be, sweeter, softer, kinder than the traditional alpha male. So in my books, usually, I don't come up with the characters first, I come up with the story first, and then I'm like, which character would have a flaw that would be, crazy enough to actually cause some real drama in the story. And that's how I come up with my characters. So it's not based on any gender, but it is based on just the story. And when I do write a male character, I try to make him, I won't say feminine because I think just, attributing qualities or traits to masculine or feminine is not something I enjoy doing. But just someone who's like my idea of a green flag, which is, again, across genders, I think, a green flag person is calm and sweet and kind and soft-hearted. And that's how I like to write my heroes. My heroines, on the other hand, are usually brash or, strong-willed and like sometimes unlikable, usually unlikable by the average reader. And I think that's completely fine because I think, it's about time that women get to also be unlikable and do not always the right thing and still get the guy in the end. Obviously, I'm not saying wrong thing as in anything immoral, but yeah. Women can also mess up every now and then, learn from their mistakes, and still get the guy in the end, and that's what I write. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And just so you know, Swati actually has a character in her book who is called Jai Man.
Yeah, Jaiman Patil, yeah.
But Jai Man.
Jaiman, that's a spelling.
Oh, men. Okay. So, speaking of that, I would like to go to Durjoy. And my question to you is actually quite, I think, slightly complicated. Because I think also because you are probably, you've been writing these stories for a very long time now. And you have a very big part when you write about childhood trauma. And a considerable part of most of, I mean, whatever I've read of your books, I see childhood issues, childhood trauma. Childhood becomes a major part in your writing style, your narrative style. Tell me a little bit about how you develop characters as a child growing up, and a lot of your characters are in their teens, in their early 20s. How do you develop those characters?
First of all, as a rule, I should get the most non-complicated questions because I have really simple answers. But thank you for that. So about childhood trauma, so you just mentioned in backstage that my favorite book of mine, of yours, is The Boy Who Loved. And The Boy Who Loved is about a Bengali boy, early teens, who's gone through a lot and is going through a lot of stuff within his family because he realizes that he belongs to a very orthodox Hindu family, and he's at an age where he's making up his frameworks about the world, about religion, about relationships, and that's when he starts to realize that maybe my parents are not what they seem to be. And when my parents read it, they were like, we are not like this. Why did you write this book? So I do write a lot about childhood traumas, but most of it does not, my story does not originate from childhood. So what I do is I make characters first, and I make a couple of characters, and I want to see how they interact with each other, and that is where the genesis of my story starts. So that is where I start my story, that I need to have two interesting characters on page, and let's see how they interact with each other. So to make them complex, I start to give them backstories and see what can lead to such behaviors in adulthood. So I don't start my story from traumas, I start my stories from behaviors characters exhibit when they are much older.
think that's a very well put thought. You do and think about it. Create characters first, and then figure out how they became what they became. It's quite cool the way your thought works. Speaking of that, Anuja, a lot of your books have been translated into scripts, and when you were writing about those characters, I am absolutely sure you had certain thoughts in your head and how you portray the character. One of my favorite characters of yours is Bambi Todi. And that's probably because I kind of identified with her a little bit when I started reading, especially because I've been seeing so many club people going there, and there is a typical character who is there. And it's kind of very cool to see that you kind of caught that essence. And then, of course, you have had to do a lot of work where you have to adapt to films, to television. So how do you deal with that? Do you like the fact that when you're making a character and the character ends up being something else? How do you feel then?
Well, actually, usually when I write a book, I start off from, I start thinking about what I want to say. For me, that's important. And I actually pick a theme first. You know, so if the theme of the book you mentioned, Bambi Todi and Club You to Death, is about, it's about privilege and, you know, different kinds of people in society, it tries to get into that. The Zoya Factor tries to get into superstition and the nation's obsession with cricket. Some books are political themes. Those Pricey Thakur Girls is about people living in a very cloistered environment who then become more aware that there's a larger world out there and that one should have an idea. You can't just live in your little bubble, ki desh mein kya ho raha hai, what's happening. You know, people coming to a sort of a political awareness and even an awareness of themselves as a person. The House That BJ Built is a book about forgiveness, you know, family drama, and how we carry burdens and we try to get over it. So for me, Baz is very much a book about muscular patriotism versus people who have a more humanistic on life, you know. So I pick the theme first. After that, I see which characters can help me explore this theme. So I'll try and find characters who have different points of views on the various issues. And for me, sometimes a love story is also a bit of a plot device, you know, because I hope that people will come in for the romance and they'll come in for the chemistry, and I'll then get to put in my sneaky agenda, whatever it is I'm trying to say on whatever issue with that. I also love writing love stories. I love the dialoguing of it. Even if I write sex, it's never sexy. It's more about what people are saying to each other and what's going on in their heads rather than what's going on in their body parts. So, you know, what happens is that when they make movies out of my books, very often they're coming for the wrong thing. You know, I'm trying to talk about the theme and the conflict and all that stuff, and very often Bollywood will tend to make it very much just about that love story strand, and that's disappointing. You know, which is why I love Lit Fest more than Film Fest, and I love readers, because readers are reading what I have actually, that's my purest vision, you know. So it's like that, it's all of us, right? I mean, we always sort of sneer at people who've seen the movie, and we, you know, like, you read the book, right? So that's true love. Those are the early fans, you could say. So I would always try to read people's books rather than watch the movies, and I would hope for the same from people who are reading mine.
Thank you so much, Anuja. Speaking of complicated love stories and strange psychological things, we have with us Novonil. And I have to admit, when I first started reading him back in 2014-15, I was puzzled because I felt that this guy really does not care about any morals. I still remember reading the first book and I was like, okay, cool. But you have actually a very cool psychological I would say, what's the word I'm looking for here? The word is standards. Okay, yeah, the standards. But most of your characters are very, very, how do I put it? Very, very different from any conventional standards. How do you create them?
I would like to believe they all come from me only. But, you know, I feel we all, when we are living in this society per se, we have to be, you know, quote unquote, right at most of the places, you know. Like, I'm sitting here, I cannot suddenly jump out, right? You know, it will be considered as, what's wrong with this guy? So when I'm writing and developing my stories, this what's wrong with this guy or girl is what I'm exploring, you know. and that excites me as a storyteller. And I operate in chaos. So if someone, it happens with me a lot where, someone asks me, so what's your story about? And if I'm not completed a story, I just tell them I don't know, because I'm just figuring out the story. I don't like to know the story myself beforehand, because it might become boring also by writing if you know everything about your story. So I operate on chaos, and some things, I think these things, when you dig deep into your subconscious, whatever you observe in society and places you live in with your friends, or you yourself have gone through something, it all comes down to what excites you. And I think early in my life, I had encountered mental health issues, and I fought it out myself only. So maybe somewhere, I'm not sure, but maybe somewhere all these things stem out from there, because again, till now, I think if you have mental health issues, the society is not that transparent. You can't talk about it even with your parents, because not that they will not react supportively, but sometimes you feel that, why am I burdening them with my stuff, So sometimes you just keep it to yourself without knowing that it is slowly kind of pushing you inside you to become something. It's alternating you in a way, and 2 years, 3 years, and suddenly you realize that things have changed within me. There are different horizons that I'm exploring. So I guess that all, when I sit down to write or try to develop a story, all these things somewhere, I fish these things out, which may not be necessarily is within me consciously, but when obviously, I'm sure every one of us who end up when we are writing, it's such a subconscious exercise also. It's not everything. Sometimes we just write something and we are just surprised, oh, did I write this? How did I write this? I have never been exposed to such a thing, but yet I'm writing it. So maybe all these subconscious notes that we make while we are living our lives and while we are growing and everything, I think it all comes from there. And the basic line is, what excites you? I mean, different things excite different storytellers, and that's why we have different storytellers, and they maybe the same theme and same topic, they will have a very different approach, and that's the beauty of storytelling, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Speaking of that, I wanted to speak to Durjoy about something very cool. When you write, and this comes after childhood trauma, I know, but when you were writing, I recently read the book which had been something that was given to me, and I kept on looking at it and didn't read it. And then about a year ago, I felt sick and I thought, okay, let me just read it. And while I was reading it, I was thinking that this is one of his earlier works, and he's writing about the question of morality. Okay, a lot of your writing bends what is morality for the sake of love or for getting somebody back. A lot of people might think of it as childish, but I personally think that's also a very interesting perspective, that your sense of morality, I think you put love first over morality and not vice versa. Tell me about how you blend standards with love. Like, how do I put it? How do you make amends between the clash between love and respect and morality? Because a lot of times I feel that they can love, but they cannot respect each other after XYZ has happened. Okay.
So, the way I have seen relationships, the vocabulary of relationships has changed dramatically from when I started writing to now. So when I started writing in 2008, there used to be Facebook, and on Facebook you can write just 3 things. Either you're single, or you're committed, or it is complicated. Now it is complicated has like 20 different stages. Even getting into a relationship has like 20 different stages. For us, in my engineering college, it was very simple. You like a girl, your friends will get the number somehow. You start texting that girl, you'll text for 3 months, then you start talking on the phone, and on your first meeting, it's already decided that you are dating. Because seen in public with some other girl automatically means that you are dating. Now, a lot of vocabulary has changed, and you can call it a situationship, soft launch, and breadcrumbing, and all of that. The vocabulary is updating every day, and it's a good thing, because now you can properly describe your relationship. When I started writing, everything was easy. So even if your partner is toxic, you say, it's complicated, we are going through some problems, and it's fine. But now you can define it, that this is, as she said, green flag behavior and red flag behavior. So when I started writing out, morality itself was very ambiguous. That what is shouting on your girlfriend moral or immoral? Things like, I love you, that's why I'm getting angry at you. used to be a very accepted thing, but now immediately if someone says it, no, you're being a red flag, which is true, and it's a toxic behavior. For us, it was like, this is how a relationship works. So in all my earlier books, when I go back, I cannot read it myself because a lot of behavior that is acceptable in the name of love, I cannot read it anymore. And I have gone back and edited my few works to tone it down, but then I'm constantly battling that should I do it, because everyone knows that this book came out in 2010 and people do not have phones and the vocabulary to call it anything else but its problem. My boyfriend thoda sa off hai. His mood is off. But now we have the vocabulary. So now I'm conscious about the way I write and I label things as they are. But if you read my earlier books, as you read probably one of my earlier books, they seem like they are doing a lot of wrong things.
And weirdly enough, when I read one more book of yours earlier on, at that time I never felt that, okay, this is bad. But now, when I look back at it, I read actually 6 or 7 of your books, which I have in my library right now, like before I came here to do my homework. So I decided that when, okay, I have to ask him about this, why did he say, and then I said, that is going to be a whole day session, difficult.
I'll just add one point. So my first book, Of Course I Love You, a network wanted to read it and make something out of it. I told them, do not read this book because this guy is a chauvinist, he's homophobic, he's etc. His entire personality is based on his crude humor. So do not read it. And they read it, and they came back to me that we can't make it because the character is like this.
Swati, in your book, you have explored different nuances of not just straight relationships, but also same-sex relationships. Tell me about writing them.
Okay, so I don't know how many of you people know this, but I am queer myself. I am bisexual. And although I wouldn't say I have a lot of experience in queer relationships, at least not as of now, I firmly feel like, it's a part of life, many people that any of us in the audience know, many people in your lives are probably queer, and even if they haven't said it out loud to whether themselves or to others. So for me, I think in every book I write, whether it's a main character who's queer or whether it's, a side character, there will always be at least one character in all of my books who is, queer or questioning or just figuring out themselves, because I think as an author, I think it's my responsibility to write those things, because if I had read more books with queer side characters when I was younger, maybe I would have figured it out sooner. But I think for me, it was always like, the story is always about this guy and this girl. So maybe that is what my love story will also always be. And now I know that maybe in the future, it could not just be me with a guy. It could be with me with someone else who's not a guy. And that's fine too. But I really think it's important for me, especially to write those characters and write those stories. Like, for example, in Match Me If You Can, my debut novel, there's one character who's one of my favorite side characters, Damini. She is the intern and she is a out and proud lesbian. And there's also another character who comes just for a short time in the later stage of the book, who is also a bisexual woman. So keeping those characters in is not just representative of the society that we live in today, even if it is India and not, say, the US or the UK. It's also representative of the kind of society I want to see and I want to normalize, that I want to kind of envision for India in the future as well. Just, queer people being able to come to their workplace and say, yeah, I'm a lesbian, and yeah, like, I don't understand why, you're going crazy over this guy, because, like, at least I don't have to deal with that, and just make jokes about stuff like that. Like, that's a normal part of, workplace, friendships, and I wanted to show that in my book. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Swati. Anuja, you have written over the years a lot of different stories with siblings, parents, family generally. I love that, the whole dynamic between people. And when you write, you do a lot of thorough research. And I love the fact that some of the times when you're writing, you create this beautiful, you can actually just see it. She has these beautiful descriptions that almost makes you visualize where you're at. And what I wanted to know is, when you are writing down characters, how important is their sexuality to you, or how important is their orientation to you? when you're creating a character for something, especially an important character, a side character? Everybody has some features, right? How important is this?
Well, their sexuality is as important as their favorite food. You know, for me, it's all part, like it's all in perspective. You know, I think I generally try to approach people just as people first. You know, so your politics, the movies you like, whether you're a sporty person, whether you're a night person or a morning person, for me, is also like your sexuality. I feel like this. You know, we just put so much pressure on sexuality that everybody is just sort of like there's so much more. You know, to people. And that I like to say everything nicely in balance. And, you know, so if somebody would ask me in the same way that I would ask you, do you like dogs or do you like desserts? I would say, do you like boys or do you like girls or do you like both? You know, it's all part of the one thing. So I'm always very curious. If I'm writing about a character, I need to know everything about them. And I know that there will be one night or a couple of 3-4 nights where I'll try to figure out this person and say, ki bhai, isko kya pasand hai? You know, what is making this person tick? And to me, of course, the sexuality is a big part of that, and especially if you're writing young people, I feel, because at that part of their time, you know, at that point in their life, the sexuality is very important. Versus if I was writing like an older gay character or even an older straight character, it would not dwell so much on their minds if they had had a nice, healthy phase in their youth when they figured that shit out. If they didn't, then obviously it would lead a long shadow, and so their sexuality or, you know, their unfulfilled desires, or, you know, if they got somehow twisted along the way or someone was terrible to them or there's trauma, then it would lead a long shadow. So then you would have to put that in. So yes, it's completely a defining block for me, you know, the sexuality of any character, right? But it is, as I think, you know, it's one of those things. It is also how I would try to approach people, you know, in the workplace, or friends I have or whatever. There's so many other things to you rather than this. So I would just try to see it holistically.
Thank you so much. Navonil, I wanted to ask you something. I have been reading your books for a while now, and most of them have a very interesting turn of mind, I would say. And the reason why I keep on asking you about psychology is because a lot of what you write can, when I read up a lot of psychological books you do seem to depict them very accurately in a lot of places. Obsession, OCD, ADHD, things like that. You do have a bit of an understanding there. So tell me, how do you do your research for this kind of a situation?
So, see, I'm not much of a research person. When I say that, mean that I don't go out and like I'll do this research and all. But I keep reading, and I think the best research is my personal opinion that the best research for any storyteller are people. You know, the more you meet them, different kinds of people, listen to their perspective, listen to what they have and their story of life, and then, you know, when you go back and you just sit down and you think, you start analyzing, obviously a part of your own perspectives of things, your own outlook of things will be added to that. But I feel as a storyteller, it's so important to be a little fluid. You know, you cannot be rigid about what your opinion is about everything, even of your own story, because then 1 or 2 books is okay, but when you ended up writing 10 plus, 15 plus books, that rigidity will reflect, especially on readers who are loyal readers who are reading your books. So to break that rigidity, even though the genre could be same, I mean, if I'm writing thrillers, I might end up writing 20 odd thrillers. But if I'm a rigid person per se, there will be a pattern that might not be appealing, because then people will predict the stories also. So it's very important, I feel, you pick things from people in general, because then you're also picking things which are real. You're not just imagining things out. So if I meet someone, and that's how also a lot of time I've been asked that, do you encounter writer's block? You know, and I don't know exactly what a writer block is, but I do know that there are, and I work on multiple stories at one given point of time. So the thing is that you do get stuck in one story. Sometimes you don't know what's going to happen next. What am I writing? Am I being repetitive or something? So my own solution to that is when I go ahead and just meet people randomly, and somewhere or the other, their perspective of things opens up a lot of things which were a question to me, myself. You know, so I think it's very important to go out there, meet people, read. So subconsciously, I'm not labeling all these activities of mine as research, but if you know, back of the mind, I'm doing a research, you know, and I'm utilizing that when I'm writing a story or developing a story, and you know, and so and so forth. So, and because I write thrillers, and as you know, thrillers are very plot-driven, you know, so I don't know, it's a good thing or a bad thing. It does not allow me to digress into topics which are not part of the narrative of the story. You know, for example, a lot of people, I get DMs and mails who ask me, why don't you write about queer people or something? It's not that I've not written, but for me, it's important whether that element is adding anything to the narrative, because I'm writing a thriller. You know, otherwise it will read like a fact in the story. You know, people might think you just kept it just for the sake of it. And I also don't want to do it. I want to explore it if I'm doing it and make it a part of the narrative. You know?
You don't want to force it.
So there's a novel of my, Heart on the Edge. So the brother of the protagonist is gay, and he declares it to his father. Obviously, he doesn't accept it, and he goes missing. Now, what interested me was, I was talking about this, but I was also using it as a takeoff point from of the novel. You know, that's the inciting incident that happens in the story. So I like to use it in that way, where it is very important. I don't want to just, for the sake of it, explore it. I want to explore it within the context of the story and the narrative. I think because that's why one of my books, which was my only erotic thriller that I had written, Black Suits You, it worked because somewhere the sexuality was part of the narrative. You know, that's why we generally don't end up writing eroticas, because, from India I'm saying, because sex is not part of the narrative. It's always, even if you see films, they say it's erotica, but the erotica part is only in songs. You chop the songs away, there's no erotica in the film. It's only someone betraying someone else and this and that. So, for me, it's very important. Whatever I'm trying to explore, it has to play a major role in the narrative. Only then I can explore it. Yeah.
Thank you. Before we continue, I want all your papers back.
Wait, do we label them?
No, you don't. You give it to me. I have two more. And once I read them out, I want you guys to guess who wrote what, okay? So, the first thing I read is the end of a love, how should a love story ending? It should end with two people not hating each other. I love this. Thank you. Whoever has written it. Any guesses who wrote this? Raise your hand from the back. Sir. Please.
I think it's Swati Hedge.
Swati
I'm
Hegde.
guessing.
Okay. Swati Hegde, no, not really. Also Hegde. The second one, I love it. It goes, how does this end? And the answer is, it shouldn't. Any guesses?
I think it's Novanil Chakraborty.
Okay, thank you so much. The third one is, if it's my story, then both will be killed. Who answers this? I want everybody to say it in a chorus. Okay. And the last one goes, a love story should end in peace. Now let me tell you, the first two, all of you were wrong. Swati wrote, a love story should end in peace. Anuja wrote, it shouldn't. A love story shouldn't end. It should continue. It should end with two people not hating each other. This is literally the most pessimistic thing I have heard in a while, but thank you. That is Durjay Datta for you. And last but not the least, this was the most obvious one. If it's my story, then both will be killed. We get it. So this ended with Navonil naam to suna hoga. It's amazing.
Unpredictable everywhere. So.
I love this. So now I am going to open this panel up to questions, because I know a lot of you have a lot of questions. And I have been requested to open it up a slightly early. Please start with raising hands for lady in the back. Yes, please. Can somebody give her the mic?
Are love stories a way
Wait,
of...
please introduce yourself first. Then tell me who you want to address. All four of them cannot address you, and me specifically not. and then tell me what your question is, okay?
My name is Shinjini, and the question is to Durjoy. For you, are love stories a part of escapism, or is it a reflection of society? Because as you said that love is evolving, the language of love is evolving. Also, while writing characters, do you delve into generalization, or how do you make them nuanced? Because even for having like a representation of another society or having representation of minority, as an author, do you get conditioned into delving into some generalizations so that the audience can connect with it?
First part of your question, first of all, thank you for your question. First part of your question, is it escapism? Escapism? It could be. We have programmed ourselves to believe in a lot of things, and love could be one of those things that we have programmed in our heads that this is important in life. We need to fall in love, we need to find a partner, and we need to live the rest of our lives. And the programming is so strong that even after your heart breaks, you want to go find another love, and then another love. So it could be escapism, but it could be something that we naturally gravitate towards, right? So I am not sure. Having said that, my own definition of love has changed. So I have changed my own programming a lot of times. So when I started writing books, my first book was named, Of Course I Love You Till I Find Someone Better. So for me, love was, I want to date a hot person, and then next month, I want to date a hotter person. Then when I started my job, my book was named, Now That You're Rich, Let's Fall in Love. So in my mind, I need to be either very rich or my partner needs to be extremely rich to have a good love story. And then I was like, she broke up, I didn't, I just kissed someone else. For me, it was like, let's just go do whatever we want and not tell each other. But when I fell in love, it was like, if it's not forever, it's not love, till the last breath, hold my hand, a touch of eternity. That for me, love was like, to 7 janmon tak saath mein hi marenge. So for me, the definition of love has changed, or it's how I programmed myself. That's the first part of your question. The second part is, of course, any character that I start writing, say, for example, if I'm writing a Muslim character, I'll start with generalizations, right? To just paint a picture in my head. In my first draft, I'll put a lot of generalizations so that I can visualize the character correctly. But as I start writing, I realize that generalizations is not what makes the character interesting. Then I sort of start making the character nuanced, and other behaviors sort of come in, and the generalizations are just they're just background noise. You won't even realize it. Of course, that has come after a lot of years. Earlier, I used to just throw stereotype after stereotype to describe a character, because for me, that's how I understood a lot of things. But over the years, as I've become hopefully a better writer, generalizations have sort of faded in my writing. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, on this side, we have from the second row, can somebody pass her the mic?
Hi everyone, I'm Devdatta. So my question is to everyone. It's like, which character of yours do we most relate to, or which character of yours has the most you in it?
Okay. I think there should be like which character has the most you in it. So far, what you have, I am assuming so far what they have written from there. Okay. So please answer everybody. This is an everybody question.
Okay, so I think for me, the character that I see the most of myself in, from Match Me If You Can, is this, astrology writer named Charu Gavaskar. I think I'm a lot like her because she's very she's very sweet, and she's very naive at times. She trusts people too much, and she also really likes astrology, and so do I, and tarot cards and all that stuff. I'm really into that. So I would say Charu for me from Match Me If You Can.
Who wants to work, any other person who identifies with their books or characters?
I would say the most would be Vanav Singh Thakur from Roses of Blood Red that I wrote. I think I had this, kind of, I hate to do this. I don't like writing about myself or giving my thing into it, but that character has a lot, philosophically, definitely a lot of me, yeah.
It's a very weird character, by the way. I read it.
Any surprises?
No, I read the book. I thought creepy lamhe. But I still remember reading the book and thinking, creepy lamhe. Anyway, Anuja, Durjoy.
No, actually, it's interesting because now I started writing in 2008. I've been writing for a long time. So even if I think back, this is very giddy, career girls, you know, heart on your sleeve, like longing for this, you know, tall, hot, you super achiever, stranger, alpha boy. Used to be me a little. Now that I get older, I am now these irascible, obnoxious old women who are just like, I'm becoming more and more like, those are the ones that I'm liking the most, you know, out of my own characters, no matter whether they're men or they're women. But I think maybe I'm just getting like old and cynical and like no shits to give, that kind of a person. Character like that I really enjoy, even if I reread now, is this lady called Pushpa Pandey in my second book, Battle for Pitora. She's like this ancient, cagey, no morals, completely does her own thing, politician, and she has a spectacular death. So that's what I hope for myself.
Wow. Okay. I guess Durjoy is not going to contribute because he doesn't.
I mean, for me, the answer is very obvious. So I used to, unlike novelty, I used to love writing about myself. So first book, the character was me. Now I absolutely hate that guy because I don't relate with that guy. But I wrote about myself, and I was very arrogant, thinking that whatever is happening in my life, it is the most interesting life, and I should write about myself. But now when I read it, I was a horrible person. So now I've changed, but 21-year-old Durjoy, first book, exactly same.
That is actually wonderful. From this side now, somebody from the back, the girl, right, the girl who's sitting there, anybody who can give the mic to the girl who's been raising her hand for a while? At 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth row. See if the other mic is working.
Hello.
Right.
Hello everyone, I'm Shraddha. So the first question that I have is for all of you. So we just heard that all of your views are, even though if it's similar about love, it's still very different. So I just want to ask you all, what is one place where you feel that all of you would agree that, okay, this is how a love story should be like?
Before anybody answers, this is a topic that deserves its own panel. Okay, and with the 4 of them here, not me. Because this is going to be an all and out fighting match, I can see that. But guys, who wants to contribute? I mean, they have to come to a decision, right? Agreement.
I think maybe we'll all agree that a love story, at least for as long as it lasts, should make the people happy. I guess maybe, I mean, we can all agree on that. I mean, like what I said, like, you know, love story should bring you peace. Even when it ends, like a love story should end with peace. What I meant by that was like, even if you break up, like, it should end with you being like, okay, you know what, looking back, it was for the best. I hope maybe, you know, that's what everyone can agree on. But again, I'm just speaking for me, so.
I think for me, the lowest common denominator is respect, because you can be unhappy, but if the respect goes out of the window, then you cannot definitely be in love with that person. So, I mean, you can fall out of love, but if you stop disrespecting the person, for me, it's over there.
Being said that, I just have another question with Durjoy sir only. So, sir, you just said a while back that the earlier books of yours was very much like yourself. So, the life you were writing about. So, would you agree that you used to write about everything that was going on, or you used to romanticize it kind of? Or like, write about what is not going on in my life and I just hope this goes on. So, how would you describe it?
For me, there was a very thin line between what was happening and what I was romanticizing about. So I started my writing with writing blogs. So what blogging is different now. I'm also a blogger. I sell all kinds of stuff. But blogging at that point in time used to be a day happens, you come back home and write a version of it. Why are you writing a version of it? Because you want people to read. And no one's day is that interesting. So you start embellishing it with details that did not happen. So for me, from the starting, whatever happens in the day is okay. But whatever my version of it, that is what I remember. So there are so many memories from that time that I remember differently from what my friends remember. So when I narrated back to them, ऐसा कुछ नहीं हुआ था. तेरे दिमाग में है. But I always viewed those stories that I am a central character. I am doing this, I am the main hero, and everything is working out in my favor, and I am the most interesting person here. So it's both. I mean, I romanticize it, so it becomes real for me.
Anuja, you were going to say something.
No, just on the love story point. I was saying, well, at the very least, maybe it should be memorable. Like, at least remember it, na? Itna boring nahi ki bhul gaye, love story.
I agree.
That's
I agree. I definitely agree. Okay, so from this side, we have the lady from the first bench.
Hi, hello, I'm Trishita. First of all, thank you so much for coming, and this was a very interesting panel. We all loved listening to you guys. So my question is to Swati and Durjoy sir. I have been reading your books since I was a child in school, and now I'm working as a professional, and you are a debut writer, right? So my question is to both of you is, romance as a genre has some restrictions with respect to the society and the readers and how they, reflect on it, or whether, if you write something that is controversial or if you write something that is so blunt, how do you, restrict yourself from writing those raw emotions that you might see in society, but you cannot write because the readers might not accept it in a good way. And to Swati as well, that what are the restrictions that you see nowadays in society that you cannot write about in your romance novels?
Durja, do you want to take this? Okay, all right, okay. So since I'm the newer author among all of us, I'll just speak for the last part of your question. In terms of what I think is, we're not, I don't get to write about, I don't see anything like that as such, at least in what I want to write about, because of course, I don't think the Indian market is particularly keen on like dark mafia romance type of vibes, at least not from what I can tell in the traditional publishing, but thankfully, I don't want to write that, so I can't speak for it because, like I said, I'm not a fan of the whole alpha hero thing. One thing I do feel like, I hope that India can accept more of is, queer love stories becoming more mainstream in, fiction and in traditional publishing, and I hope that eventually happens in India as well. Because I do have a high school queer romance coming out in the US in 2026. And we haven't sold the India rights for that yet. So if any Indian publishers are here and you want to do that, please approach me. But anyway, that's kind of, I think, nothing that I'm restricted to write that I want to write. Okay, over to you, Durjoy.
I think a part of your question was also that if you write something that's touchy and it angers some people, do you want to venture into writing those? I think writers are pretty safe. To troll a writer, someone has to read an entire book he or she doesn't like, then find you on Twitter and then start trolling you. I think we are very safe because generally I've seen trollers don't read or finish a lot of books. So I think I don't feel scared about writing anything.
Then the lady in the, sir in the back, can somebody give him the mic, please? Yeah. Is it that mic? Yeah, it is that mic. That is, yeah, it is that mic.
Hello. I'm Uttam, and I think I'm the only guy who's asking a question, and I hope I don't offend any of you. But do you see a natural sort of, feminism being at odds with the propensity to fall in love for a woman?
I think before leading, I think we need to take both parts here because you said that feminism
is sort of at odds with, it's in opposition to the propensity to fall in love for a woman in a heterosexual situation.
Right.
Is it naturally opposed?
See, I think the dangers of falling in love anytime is that you might lose a little bit of yourself, right? I think that cuts across gender completely. That's what makes it the risk and the vulnerability. You're opening yourself up, no matter what gender you are. It's scary. you could get messed up, things could go horribly wrong. So with girls, maybe, you know, the whole thing of being alone at night out with a person who is easily, say, 8 inches and like 10 kgs heavier than you. So that's like a physical risk, maybe, that men don't usually date women who are larger and, sort of taller than them. So apart from that risk, I just feel that anybody who's putting themselves out there is going to have that fear that, you know, you're going to be bending to somebody's will or you're trying to please someone else. So that risk is always there, anytime.
I'm sorry, I must have not expressed myself correctly. From a woman's point of view, the feminist woman, is she going to have...
Are you saying that feminists don't fall in love?
I'm asking exactly
No,
that.
no.
Yeah,
How
but
will
that's
you?
No,
Some
no.
of the greatest feminists are men.
No, but let's not make this about men.
I said-
For once, you got a question about
I said
women.
for a woman who's a feminist and in a heterosexual relationship, is it difficult for a feminist to find herself falling in love?
I think that a feminist is as much and as capable of, you know, loving deeply and madly and truly as much as anybody else. I really don't see the contradiction here. Now the new generations have given us amazing ways of identifying who is a worthy partner. We've all become engine drivers with red flags and green flags. We can wave them whenever we want. So I think that's really good. It's easier, in fact, for feminists today, I would say, because society is slowly coming to understand that in a relationship, it's not always the woman who's going to be giving up stuff, you know, choosing a college on the basis of where her love interest is going, or, you know, when exactly to have a child or not have a child, and so on and so forth, and housework and stuff. So it's becoming, those kind of things are going away. So I think it's a great time for feminists, both male and female, to fall in love. And if there is a problem, there's probably a problem with the man that this feminist is dating, if you ask me.
Sir, just adding a little bit here, the basic definition of feminism as per Google Wikipedia is a person who wants to be equal to a man in their rights, as in whatever rights the guy is getting, the girls should be treated equally, right? That's the basic definition of feminism, and I don't think that's unacceptable for anybody or any person in general to be treated like a human being. I think that's no hindrance to love. Any feminist can fall in love, any masochist can also fall in love, any East can fall in love given the circumstance. Trust me. Yes, on the right, the guy with the amazing glasses, please.
Thank you for the lovely panel, first of all. So the topic for the panel is how women write these stories vis-a-vis how men write these stories. So I can imagine from an audience point of view, but I would love to explore from a writer's point of view how you think that women and men might think differently about when they write about these stories. That's number one, and how that has evolved over the years in the society. And number two is, have you ever thought that I should not, and thought objectively about it, I should not write it as a female writer, I should think more as a writer in general per se, or I should not write as a male writer, I should think about a writer in general. So that's my questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think Navanil, you want to start, take this one?
So I'm a little obviously confused at whether gender really plays a role when you are developing a story. I don't know, it may or may not, I don't know. But I can just say what and how it works for me, because I think 90% of my books have, in fact 99% of my books have women protagonists. I feel that, artists in general are somewhere androgynous. And when you sit down to write your story, it all depends which energy is the one that is expressing. Whenever I sit down to write, I always feel the feminine energy is dominant, that way. I feel it when I write it. There have been times when I wanted to write from a male point of view, and after 2-3 pages, automatically it changed to a woman's point of view without me pre-planning it. I don't know whether it answers the question or not, but this is an experience that I had when I started writing. So I feel it's the energy within you which kind of, because we all have this balance of masculinity and femininity, right? We all have it. And whichever way you are tilting within, while you are expressing your art, I think decides how well you do it. And yeah, I mean that, and I don't know whether this answers the question really, because I'm always a little confused whether as a storyteller, does gender have a role when we are developing? Because I know male writing amazing women characters. I know women writing amazing male characters. I know male writing rubbish male characters also. And I know women writing rubbish women character also. So that's where I get confused that should I generalize this? You know, because, so yeah, I mean, that's what I think, yeah.
Anyone else?
I just want to say that it's not so much about writing amazing characters, it's about writing authentic characters. That's really important because sometimes I've had this pitfall, you know, because I wrote ads for Pepsi for 17 years, and Pepsi is a brand that, like, the target audience was, please don't quote me, is defined as young, dumb, and full of gum. That's what they used to say they were. You know, that was my target audience. I wrote for these boys for 14 years. I don't know how well I did it. I think it was like Durjoy said earlier, it was just stereotypes, you know. It is my notion of what I think male energy is. And that may not be very informed. It might just be a lot of swearing and saying like bro and bastard, you know, which is not a very good definition of how boys may think and behave. And I think it's just about like having these intimate male relationships in your life, which today I can say because I've been married for so long and my son is 24 and we talk and he has friends and now I have access. So I think that's really so important in your writing, to have access to intimate stories, have circles where people will genuinely tell you stuff. And then, you know, you can use that and try and write something authentic.
This is the last question.
Actually, the bottom line, I feel, comes to the fact that observation and absorption.
Right.
You know, whether you're a male or a female.
Absolutely. This is the last question, and I would have one last, okay, fine, two last questions, both from the first benches. The lady on the left and the man with the bandage on the right.
Hi, I'm Adrija. My question is to Novonil, but it would be really great if Swati could pitch in as well. You mentioned that you would like to explore queer characters in your story only if they added to the story, like added something to the story.
Narrative, to the
yes,
narrative.
to the narrative. Yes. So I would assume that you're talking about the trials and tribulations of the identity politics that they face, adding to the narrative.
That's a facet of it. Yeah, that could be also why I'm trying to explore and put it in the narrative.
So would you say that heteronormativity is the standard when you're formulating your characters?
I don't know if it's a standard because, you know, how stories occur to us writers or storytellers, it's a gray zone. I don't think anybody can exactly tell you how they get the ideas, you know. Like there's no mudra where I sit like this and ideas will come and then I'll start writing. And because this is a gray zone, I don't know if there is any standard. Obviously, I mean, for example, it all depends. If you're surrounded by a certain kind of people, you tend to pick that up. You know, one of my friends had pointed out, it was a discussion that I was having with him and he said, you know, what he said was out of context, but I just mentioned this, that, you know, I find a few, you know, some writers write about pets more. So you will see that their characters will have a pet because they have a pet at home. And some writers don't add a pet to the thing because their relationship with pets are different. So that stayed with me. That it's interesting because you pick up things from what you observe and what you think is the generalized version that is happening. So I don't know whether it's a standard, but I do get it that a lot of things come from generalization for sure, you know, and then it's up to you how you filter it out. And you want to make it something exclusive or not. So how you filter it depends on your own cognizance of, you know, things. Yeah.
This is why I want Swati to pitch in as well. As a queer author, in a like where literature is so heteronormative, where you do not have representation most of the time, and that is because society does suppress a lot of queer people. How important, like you did mention, it is very important for you to write queer characters that exist. But how important is it for you to write queer characters that exist without having gender-based violence or queer-based violence inflicted on them?
I think one thing I really want to write in my queer novels is queer joy. I don't want to write books where, you know, queer people are looked down upon or like they're made to feel like shit, because you know what, a lot of queer people go through that every day anyway. And for me, throughout my life, books have been a lot about escapism and just about hope. So in my upcoming queer young adult rom-com, I chose to not set it in India. I chose to set it in California with an Indian American main character who has two fathers. And she herself comes to terms with being bisexual because I didn't want it to be set in a place like India where, you know, if you're just, your mere existence will make people think like, oh, she must be going through so much, or they must be going through so much. Life must be so hard for them. I wanted to write a queer joy book, so that's what I did. In an upcoming adult romance novel of mine, which will be releasing in 2026, the hero is bisexual. And while that is, I wouldn't say that's, you know, important to the narrative in whichever way, but that is who he is. So I wrote it that way. And of course, you know, he does have an ex-boyfriend in the picture and all of that. But for me, I don't think I, write queer characters to further the plot as much as I write queer characters to make my readers feel seen and make myself feel seen. So I hope that answers your question.
Last question, and please make it quick because now I'm getting stares.
Okay, hi, my name is Anvesh, and my question is for all of the writers over there. While you're writing, a conversation between a guy and a girl, do you think of that entire conversation, how it goes, or you write it as it goes? Like, my main question is, like, how do you flip between the male's perspective and the girl's perspective when you are a female author or you are a girl or male author? So how does that work?
Anybody?
I mean, when I'm writing a conversation, it's a conversation. I'm not thinking. I'm thinking about characters and how they would respond. And just a point about dialogues, about us writing dialogues, I think the bigger challenge is not what gender is speaking. The bigger challenge is how to make, because most conversations in the reader's mind is happening in some regional language or Hindi, but we are writing in English. So that's the bigger challenge that I face, that, okay, this conversation is happening in Hindi, but I have to write it in English. How do I do that?
Okay. Yeah, so no, actually I was...
Okay, so I'm sorry, but now our time is up. But before we end, let me just say thank you so much, audience. You have been a wonderful, wonderful audience today. And all four of you have been such great people. Thank you so much, everybody. Good day.